want to thank everyone for joining our program today, Digital Equity, the Future of Bridging the Digital Divide. We're hosting this special program here today because it's the final day of Digital Inclusion Week. So to celebrate, we wanted to bring together a panel of experts on digital equity. And since this is Senior Planet, we'll of course be taking a look at digital equity through the lens of older adults. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator today. Ellen Forbes is a program specialist here at OATS and Senior Planet, covering digital equity programming and affordable high-speed internet. She has a 10-year career that extends across city and federal public policy, community development, and public health infrastructure. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ellen. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Deirdre, and thank you everyone for joining today. Happy Friday and happy end of Digital Inclusion Week. My name's Ellen Forbes, and I'm really proud to bring you a very exciting panel discussion today on the future of bridging the digital divide for older adults. If you're new to us, Older Adults Technology Services from AARP, or as we're better known as OATS, is a social impact organization that has been around for 20 years now. We aim to empower older adults with the tools and training necessary to take advantage of today's technology and use it to enrich their lives. And through our flagship program, as Deirdre mentioned, our Senior Planet from AARP, we work with older adults across the country to create extraordinary experiences in person and online, and we extend a very warm welcome to any Senior Planet participants on the call today. We do all of this work as well as a charitable affiliate of AARP as well. So today, our esteemed panel will discuss how access and adoption of technology programming has really evolved over the years. And the panel will also discuss how current government dollars will support future programming to ensure that we have access for all older adults, no matter their background. So we do bring this event to you during National Digital Inclusion Week. You may or may not have heard of it. We celebrate during this week each year ongoing community-based technology programming, and really the reason why we do all of this, which is older adults. And before I introduce our panel, Deirdre did mention some housekeeping at the top of the call. We'll be joined by our wonderful virtual team, Deirdre and Wanda, so you may see them throughout the chat, helping to manage the questions and answers that you may have. But we'll also be asking a poll question throughout our discussion. And when this question becomes available, it'll pop up on the screen and you can pop your answer into the poll. All right, so turning to introductions, firstly, we have our OATS founder and executive director on the call, Tom Kamber. Tom Kamber is a leading expert on aging and technology and is regularly featured in national media. So these panels are no new thing to him. So we welcome him. Under his leadership, OATS and Senior Planet have developed award-winning technology programs over the past 20 years and across America for older adults. So welcome, Tom. Second is Tim Morstad. Tim joins us from AARP today. Tim is a government affairs director at AARP Livable Communities, where he leads AARP's state and local advocacy for high-speed internet, telecommunications, and the transportation portfolios. Welcome, Tim. And lastly, we have one of our greatly esteemed Senior Planet licensed partners, Chisom Nnajiofor. Chisom is the Digital Dividends Program Manager at Little Brothers Friends for the Elderly in the Boston area. Chisom leads initiatives focused on promoting digital literacy and bridging the technology gap for older adults. Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly is nationwide. They're a nonprofit organization working to end loneliness and social isolation among older people, and they've been doing this for over 60 years. So thank you all so much for joining on today's call. Tim, I'm going to kick it off with you this morning. Could you please set the stage on how digital equity policy has evolved over the years and really expand upon what is happening at the moment on a national level? What sort of initiatives are taking place right now, such as the Digital Equity Act? So Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Ellen. And first, let me thank you and Tom and the rest of the OATS team for hosting this important call today and inviting me to be part of it. I'm happy to kind of set the table. We're at a super exciting time, but let's take a quick moment here to rewind the tape a little bit and to go back a few decades to say that this is a movement that really started to gain momentum in the early 1990s when the concept of the digital divide started to emerge. And it really started to the conversation really started to focus towards disparities and access to technology and the internet. And so we've heard that it's ingrained in our memory and in our psyche, this digital divide. It's been around a long time, but at its core, it really speaks to the disparate impact and access that people have had to technology for quite a while. So this is a long-term discussion, but we're at a really exciting moment in time right now. But stepping forward a little bit, during the 2000s, there were community access programs, initiatives like the Federal Communication Commission's E-rate program that provided funding to improve internet access in schools and libraries. It really was aiming to bridge the gap for underserved communities. And then by 2010, we had a national broadband plan, and it emphasized the need for universal access to broadband. So policies were starting to get introduced to incentivize private investment in rural and low-income areas. And then by 2015, we started to really have a focus on inclusion, where the Federal Communication Commission, the FCC, overhauled its Lifeline program and expanded the eligibility to include broadband services. So this was really aiming to help low-income households afford internet service. But really, I'd say the game-changing event here in the last few years, has really been the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic really laid bare the urgency of digital equity. Those who had access could receive health services. Those without struggled to. And there was a great response from the federal government. First and foremost, the standing up the emergency broadband benefit program. So this was the federal government's response to tackle the fact that some people just can't afford access to high-speed internet. And so this provided assistance for certain households to be able to connect to the internet. And then just following on the heels of that, we had significant federal legislation that we're still working through today to implement. But the bipartisan infrastructure law of 2021 allocated significant funds for broadband expansion, particularly in rural and underserved urban areas, with a focus on equity. And like I said, this investment is just starting to hit states and communities right now, later this year, starting next year. And it's a super exciting springboard to just potential that we haven't been able to have for quite a long time. And I will mention the Digital Equity Act, which was part of the bipartisan infrastructure law. This is really the generational opportunity to try to address the digital divide. And I know we're going to talk more about it, but real quickly, let me mention that AARP has been there on behalf of older adults since the beginning of the policies, the federal government, state and local. We've been on this issue for decades because we know that having access to high quality internet is a game changer, but it's more than access. It's the skills and the devices, is having the ability to actually use the technology, even if you do have access. And so we're very excited about this conversation today. And we know it unlocks so many benefits for older adults. And I can go on, but I'll go ahead and pass the torch here. Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you very much, Tim, for that background. It's good to set the stage with that and to give a bit of context to how those programs have been implemented and the effect that they've taken. Tom, I'd love to turn it to you. You've been working in this space for more than 20 years now. How have these initiatives impacted OATS, and what positive changes have you seen for older adults based on these initiatives?
Well, thanks for having me do this today, and happy Digital Inclusion Week for everyone. It's pretty exciting to be talking about this stuff in a moment when there's some actual funding happening. So, I started OATS 20 years ago, and I've been working in community technology all the way back into the 1990s. I used to work for a housing organization, and I remember all the way back, I think it was 1992, that we were getting some federal funding when there was interest in doing some digital inclusion work, and we were putting computer terminals into some low-income housing developments here in New York City. But then the funding evaporated after that wave of it, and there was nothing available for digital inclusion. There really wasn't a lot of public attention to it until around 2010, when there was a stimulus package during the economic crisis period that was taking place at that time. And there was a program called the Broadband Technology Opportunities Program, BTOP. And BTOP was the first really well-developed national effort to try to close the digital divide. It was for low-income communities and underserved communities around the country. There was a substantial amount of money made available for infrastructure. And one of the challenges, of course, is that, even though you can train people to use technology, if they can't get it at home, we're just kind of spinning our wheels in the sand a little bit. So there's kind of this need to make sure that there's access, and the access goes, you can sort of calculate it in different ways, but the assumption is that people need to be able to get high-speed internet at home, and they need to be able to afford it. It has to be something that's available at a price point that they can manage. And then on top of that, there's a need for community institutions to be able to provide computer labs that people can use for seniors and low-income people and high school folks and people that may not have technology at home. And then finally, there's what we do a lot at Senior Planet and OATS, which is the training side of it. So back in 2010, when that initiative was launched, it was about a 3-year program, and OATS really, it was a real kind of a shot in the arm for our organization. We were doing a lot of training and working with a lot of organizations around in New York City. But at the time, we had heard people said they wanted to have kind of a home for technology, a place where people can come together as older adults, but really see each other in a real showcase center. And so we applied to the federal government. It's actually the Department of Commerce. It's the same group that's managing this current generation. We were able to get funding for Senior Planet, which was the first technology-themed community center in the United States at that point. And Ellen, your background is actually the internal space there at Senior Planet. So for people who haven't been there in person, it was a really great opportunity for us. We built out 24 additional computer centers. We got our curriculum up and running, and we were sort of growing into more of a national enterprise there. So that kind of generation of digital equity funding was really important as an investment for us. And we did some calculating recently and found that the whole grant in New York was about $2.7 million, I think, that we were able to access. And we turned that into more like, many millions of dollars of investment afterwards that grew the programs. I think I have a number here. It's in my $76 million in additional funding. So when you think about, kind of bang for your buck, if you invest in digital equity funding, especially from the federal or the government standpoint, and you get people to build up some more momentum around how to train and how to create safe spaces and environments where people can learn, it can really bring a lot of investment from other parties, from private philanthropy and individuals and corporate funders, and we can really build on those dollars. So that's been how it's worked at OATS and Senior Planet. And all these years later now, we're an affiliate of AARP, as you mentioned, and we've got programs built on that initial really modest funding. We have over 500 partners around the country that are using that curriculum that traces back to the original investment. So digital inclusion, digital equity is very powerful. It really makes a difference.
Thank you very much for that, Tom, and that provides wonderful context for a program that we have called the licensing program, Senior Planet Licensing Program. It's an initiative that we started a couple of years ago that really aims to build the capacity of local organizations with a train the trainer program, and also with our curriculum too. And we have Chisom from Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly in Boston, who is one of our licensed partners. And Chisom, I understand you've been a licensed partner for the past 2 years now, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you be able to share a little bit more about the work that you're doing within Boston for older adults and the impact that you're making, but also how the licensing program itself has helped grow your capacity?
Yeah, thank you so much, Helene, and happy Digital Inclusion Week to everyone. Our little brothers, our mission, just like Ellen mentioned, is to relieve isolation and loneliness for older adults. We mostly focus on public and affordable housing because we know that some of our older adults have limited access to technology. I mean, before now, during COVID, we know everything went virtually. Everything was just about technology online. And we noticed that some of our older adults couldn't join our classes online, not just because they don't want to, but some of them don't have access to technology, or people that even have the resources to join don't even know how to use it. And that's how we created Digital Dividend Program. So this program is funded. We give out free laptops and hotspots to older adults in affordable housing and offer weekly trainings. And we also partner with local universities, Boston College, Northeastern University, Simon University, just getting students or volunteers that have service learning components for maybe their coursework. They get to serve with us for one full academic year. So it's really been amazing working with older adults, just watching them learn how to use their computers. And then in 2022, we took things over by partnering with Senior Planet. It has really been a very great resource, just getting to work with Senior Planet. There's so many amazing, fascinating things that I can go over and over again, just talking about how amazing Senior Planet has really been. I think one thing is just the Train the Trainer series. I mean, when I started my job newly, I didn't really know much about how to relate older adults, computer trainings, how it's been done, but just getting people understanding, just people sharing their stories, getting to get trained or like certified on how we can do things, or like so many courses that we can, topics that we can actually teach older adults. It's really been very empowering, just teaching older adults. And also one fascinating thing I would mention here is the course book. It has so many different languages. It's not just in English. You're talking about Spanish and Mandarin. Older adults, there are so many people that don't know how to speak English, even though we work with local communities, local universities, like students that speak other languages. Getting older adults to be included, understanding what we do. We are teaching in English, but someone else does not understand what you're teaching. So it has really very empowered us on what to do, how to do it. Just so many people, we have over 50 older adults, and Senior Planet course materials really helped us to expand our classes. We've had over 36 classes, and over 270 older adults have attended in 7 affordable housing across Boston. So it's really been amazing hearing the stories of older adults, getting them included, connecting them to college students, and it's been fascinating. And also another thing, before now, when we started partnering with Senior Planet, we usually go online just looking for simplified materials, courses on what we can teach, topics. But it's very simplified. It's a well-compiled book of what you can do, how to do it, very simplified. After the classes, you see all the adults that have gone online just using the course book to go step by step of how to do things. And we've had amazing stories of people that can now use their Zoom, people that send us Gmail, like emails, just talking about how amazing our classes have been. So it's really been amazing hearing older adult stories on Zoom, getting jobs. We currently have an older adult that was able to get a job. Kudos to him. So it's really very fascinating working with Senior Planet and seeing how technology has really impacted in the lives of older adults.
Thank you for that, Chisom. So it's good to see the lifespan of this work, how far it has come, how it's impacted us as an organization, and as well what AARP is doing across the board to make sure that older adults are heard. What we're actually going to do now is turn to our participants and folks that are participating in technology programs, whether that's here with us at Senior Planet or whether you're participating with one of our licensed partners or any technology training across the US. We're actually going to have a poll question now to see why you're engaging with technology training. So wonder if you wouldn't mind popping up that poll question, and folks online, you can answer the poll question, and we'll take a few moments just to get your answers. So the poll question is, why do you engage with Senior Planet or technology training? And we've got a few answers here. Firstly, to stay connected with my peers, to keep up to date with new technologies, to receive support with technology, or to further my hobbies and interests. we can see that a few folks are interested in new technologies predominantly. Take a few more moments. Or if there is any other reason why you're engaging with technology training, feel free to pop your answer in the chat as well. All right, it looks like we have our answers. Wanda, would you like to announce the results of our poll?
Okay, I can share the results. So it looks like 11% wants to stay connected with my peers, an overwhelming 57% to keep up to date with new technologies, 21% to receive support in technology, and 11% to further my hobbies and interests.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes, definitely overwhelming result for new technologies. And as we think about the new technology, the new digital divide, technology divide that lays before us, it's great to connect with Senior Planet or with any technology programming to learn about those new technologies like AI, like preparing for emergencies, those sorts of things. I'll just read quickly in the chat just some responses that we got in relation to engaging with technology training programs. So a lot of folks are wanting to still keep up with their peers, meet new people, access my community, wanting to engage on social media. So learning new platforms is a great way to engage in your community. Understanding AI, and to engage others who are homebound. That's fantastic. So thank you very much for those responses to our participants online. All right, so we're going to turn back to our panelists, and this is going to be an open question to spark a little bit of dialogue between our panelists. But we've looked back to programs that have been implemented over the past 10, 20 years through government funding, through private funding, but thinking about the future, and especially thinking about the future of the Digital Equity Act that Tim had mentioned, and thinking about sustainability of those resources and future government funding, future private funding. What would you like to see implemented across the community, and what sort of impact do you think this will have on older adults? And Tim, I'm going to turn it to you first, but feel free to jump off of each other on this question, Tim, Tom, and Chisom as well. Thank you.
So thanks, Ellen. Looking forward, you can tell I think I said the word excited 2 or 3 or 5 times early on. It is really exciting because what we have now is we have this opportunity through the Digital Equity Act. Every state has put together a digital equity plan. It's been approved from the federal government. The money is flowing out to states, and it's going to be in communities very soon to really address this core issue, the digital divide. How are we going to bring digitally disconnected, historically digitally disconnected communities, high-speed internet, not just access, but the skills and the devices to really make good use of it. So I'd say first and foremost, going forward, because we've got this opportunity with the federal funds lasting the next 4 or 5 years, significant federal funds, we need to make sure that we build a digital equity ecosystem. And I know that's a big kind of loaded word, but let me describe what it means. It means that we need a web of various groups working on this issue, sharing best practices. We need to make sure that there are different organizations that get to try out novel approaches in delivering programs and services to people. We need to make sure that we're honoring and rewarding models that have existed for a long time that are proven winners. But this ecosystem is very important because over the next few years, we're going to have the funds to try some things and learn some things. But at some point, at least the federal dollars are probably going to wind down. And we need to build something now with it that will sustain us going forward. So I really envision the ecosystem as this web of organizations and interested and supported individuals who are really really invested in digital equity, and we need to make sure that they are connected. They're connected with the state broadband offices that are administering these programs, but they're also connected with each other, sharing best practices, like I said, and making sure that what we have is something that will sustain for the next few years. I would also say that we need to continue robust community engagement in developing these state plans. State broadband offices reached out to groups and individuals representing a whole bunch of populations who have really been left behind, that are really on the wrong side of this digital divide. And we need to make sure that that collaboration continues. We need constant feedback, a strong feedback loop from these groups and individuals to say, hey, here's what's working, here's what's not working, or here's the latest technology. My needs are different. I see a lot in the chat about AI. I'm not surprised. I mean, I think that could be one of the next big digital divide frontier issues or technologies. So we need to have this constant community conversation, this engagement, to make sure that as needs change, it's communicated up to the decision makers who might be directing some of these funds. And then finally, I'll say we need to tell our story, meaning that we need to capture data on how the programs are performing out there over the next couple years with these great resources. We need to make sure that stories are collected to help really put a human face on this, to help decision makers understand the real value that's being created here. And I'm a big fan of outcome measures and just really measuring how access and skills and devices are really changing people's lives, are allowing them to do more. And so I'm really hopeful that that's what we measure, like the documented change to people's lives. So lots of excitement, going back to my core word, but I'll back off here and pass it off.
I mean, I can chime in briefly, just a couple of comments. One is I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment and say how grateful that I am that Tim is doing all this work. You know, they have a whole office of experts in government affairs there in DC, and they're it's really kind of the A team in terms of making change on Capitol Hill. And the fact that every time I talk to them, they're working on something related to tech access and making sure that people can get the technology support that they want. You know, I think the Affordable Connectivity Program was a big you know, area where they made a lot of effort to get a lot of folks that were under resourced to be able to get subsidized internet, and they've been fighting to get that program continued or something similar into the future. So I mean, I think that the fact that it's such a strong agenda item in the aging world, and I think if you had talked to me 20 years ago and said, you know, the people that are fighting hardest for digital inclusion are going to be, you know, AARP and the people in the aging space, I would have kind of probably laughed it off. And here we are in a space where I think it's really, you know, that leadership is something that is standing out for people, and we're making a difference. So just had to say that. And then I think just trying to get at Ellen's question a little bit, and Chisom had a comment in here too. I think I think the you know, looking forward, there's a couple of pieces. One is I think it's really important to recognize a lot of rural people are not connected still. So it's not an even playing field. We did some research a while ago and found that it's a few years old now, but we found about 40% of people over 65 don't have wireline high-speed internet at home. So, you know, that's a real disparity, and it really concentrated a lot for people in rural communities. So I know that we live in New York City here, or I do, but you know, when you get out into some of the less, you know, the smaller towns and places around the country, people can't, you know, they're stuck with satellite if they can afford it. And so getting that stronger series of options and choices is critical. And the other part of it is really empowering groups at the grassroots level. You know, we've got 2,000 pages of curriculum at OATS. We've got 450 partners. But last time I did the math, there's more like, 5,000 partners out there that we could be working with. And we get calls every single day. I just got one this morning from a group that has to deal with technology challenges. They're serving older adults. Somebody mentioned in the chat here, what about languages, right? We can teach on AI, but what if you need AI in Korean or AI in, in Vietnamese or in French or Haitian Creole? We really have to be able to make sure that people that are doing the work in a library or in a senior center or in a housing development are empowered to help with these really challenging new technologies. And then the last thing I'll say is, if we look at the poll and we realize, over 50% of the people on this call say that they're interested in digital equity because of the new technologies, it emphasizes how much we have to be getting really up to date, kind of rapidly turning around the research about what the new tech is, and then helping people get access to it. We go to that Consumer Electronics Show every year, and we go through hundreds of these booths, and we gather all these, notes about what's going on in virtual reality and AI and home automation and things. And it's bewildering. It's just overwhelming for people. And so digital equity today has to have a component of bringing that knowledge base and making it accessible for people that are working in the field directly with the questions that are getting asked.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Tom and Tim. Internet is a very big issue right now, not just where I currently stay in Boston, but like everywhere. Even though we provide free hotspots for older adults, we still have so many people that are really left behind. And I think that's one thing that I really want to see happen in our communities as well. And I mean, also, intergenerational connection is a very big piece. We don't need temporal fix, we need permanent fix, something I know our older adults can keep up with. So intergenerational connection is really very important. Getting students out there to help older adults continuously, not just one time of thing or like within weeks. We are talking about months or even 1 year. So definitely, I think intergenerational connection is a very big piece, working with local universities like LBFE that we do, just structuring our programs to fit into their coursework, which is people that serve within one full academic year. So it's very important we understand that technology has come to stay, and just making sure that we do the best that we can do is just priority. So internet access and also intergenerational connection. I mean, the city of Boston here, the Department of Innovation and Technology, they provide wicked free Wi-Fi, mostly in affordable and public housing. So I think this is something that we really want to see, not just in affordable housing, but reaching other older adults in different communities. So definitely, I really agree with Tom and Tim. For intergenerational connection is really one piece I really look forward to seeing.
No, that's fantastic comments as well. And Chisom, are you working with other organizations within Boston to reach older adults as well? We've got a question in here. What is you're doing fantastic work? A comment from Christian. He has a question about what is your coverage and reach in Boston, if you have that.
Yeah, sure. We focus on affordable housing in Boston. It's an international nonprofit, but our specialty here is in Boston. So we focus on all the affordable housing. We've been able to cover over 19 affordable housing in Boston, and just working with other organizations to how can we collaborate? What can we do? I mean, we give out free laptops, but we want to expand. We want to work with affordable housing and just reach into low income communities as well.
That's great. Thank you, Chisom. It's great to get that insight. And to get further insight, I would love to actually turn it over to our audience. There have been a couple of comments in the chat, but I just want to make sure that we take some time to answer your questions that you have now. So Wanda and Deirdre, were there any questions in the chat over the past 20 minutes or so that have come up that our panelists can answer?
There was one question from Avis Davis, and she had a comment, but towards the end of her comment, she mentioned we have older adults, but also many whose first language is not English. I need to see how others teach to get new ideas.
Tom, I might actually turn it up. I can see you nodding your head.
I'll take that one. It's
I,
fine.
I can actually do that too. I can
Chisom,
just,
why don't you
fantastic.
start? Because I talk all the
yeah,
time. You
yeah,
and I'll
sure.
fill in.
So the work that we do, we have so many older adults, over 50 older adults that don't speak English, and that's where the students come in. So we make sure that we work with students that speak other languages, just making older adults that don't speak English feel very comfortable. Just as we are teaching in English, they are interpreting to the older adults of what we say. And also, I mean, the Senior Planet course book is also there. When you don't understand something in English, it's very simplified, the same word by word in different languages. So it has really helped them to follow up with what we are teaching. They're always excited to come to class. You can see an older adult already there 5 to 10 minutes even before you get there. That's inclusion. So definitely reaching out to students that speak those languages and matching them with older adults, and also using the course book to get them included has been a very great one. So I think that's what I want to chip in here.
That's super helpful. We've had a couple of different levels of this over the years. We started teaching in Spanish many years ago. I speak Spanish, and so I thought that was sort of a natural extension. But we found, first of all, that a lot of people, we found surprising things. When we went into the classroom, we created a Spanish class, and we put the book out in Spanish, and then everybody said, oh, we also actually want the English book. And I remember standing there and saying, why do you want the English book? You don't really speak English. And they're like, well, we actually are learning English while we're learning technology. And so it helps us to be able to cross-reference. And so we learned a little bit about the methodology, which was really to kind of be a little bit more bilingual when we were doing the training. And then over time, we've realized that we've started adding in additional languages. We've taught in Russian, we taught in Bengali, we just taught in Vietnamese recently, and we have a lot of curriculum in Chinese. And they require different levels of commitment in order to be able to do the translations. We've got funders from outside funders that have helped us support the work. AARP did a whole bunch of translation for us a while ago. But what we're also doing lately is we're licensing the curriculum to local community partners who are able to take that and deliver it in different languages that are really contextual. So that's helpful. And then the last thing that's really critical is, in addition to the training, there's the phone calling, because people have questions. And so we have a call center at OATS. If you go to seniorplanet.org, on the main page, there's a hotline number. It's a free hotline, and we'll try to answer any questions people call with. And if you call with Spanish, we're ready to talk about it, because we've got a Spanish person there, full time. But for other languages, Chinese, Vietnamese, anything that may not be as commonly spoken, if they call and say you need help, we will try to get a trainer to call you back in your native language so that you can have the conversation. And so that call center support turns out to be a really important supplement to what's going on in the classroom. And I think we do 3,500 to 4,000 calls a month sometimes. So take advantage. We're here for that.
And Ellen, if I can pile on here.
Yeah, I was just about to turn it over to you, Tim.
Yeah, I was just going to say on language, I wanted to share that there were 8 what they call covered populations in the federal legislation in this Digital Equity Act that we're talking about. And one of the 8 covered populations, of course, is older adults. We all know too well that older adults have been left behind. But also individuals, the way they term it is individuals with a language barrier. Is another one of the 8 covered populations. So know this, that the digital equity plans developed by each state have had to draw up like plans and strategies and objectives and activities to address the fact that these populations really have been left behind, and that the resources flowing to the state must be channeled towards helping to bridge the gap here. And so and let me make the connection. Older adults spans every single one of these covered populations. Obviously, we've got veterans, we've got people in rural areas, individuals with disabilities, and individuals with language barriers. So this opportunity right now through the Digital Equity Act is an across the board attempt to make sure that these groups that have been left behind get the services and the programs that will help bring them up. So this is super exciting.
Thanks for covering that, Tim. Yes, it is a broad scope of work that is happening across the nation right now, and also in our organizations on the ground. All right, so we have a couple of comments that we can turn into questions to help you give you context. So from Emily, she says, I work in a senior center in a rural area and would love to have a script or a flyer to replicate to encourage older adults not to be afraid to call us for tech support, device loan programs, and education. Our pilot social day hybrid program for people with dementia is an example that she's given. So Emily, I guess the question that you're asking or support that you're looking for is what type of talking points or resources have been helpful from maybe Chisom, Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly, or from Senior Planet, have been helpful to get older adults on board. Tom and Chisom, I turn that question to you.
I can start up with this. First of all, we have a little report on senior plan on oats.org if somebody wants to try to dig that out and put it in the chat from our team. We're very committed to rural specifically. So we launched a center up in Plattsburgh, New York a few years ago, which is at the up in a mall right near the Canadian border where they actually speak there's bilingual French on the radio. So you know how far north that is. And we've been really interested in the things that get people in rural areas to activate more. Number one turns out to be, not surprisingly, but it's family and social connection. A big talking point. Many folks that live in rural areas have family members who've moved away, you know, especially their children who may have moved to the city for college and never came back. And so now you've got this dynamic where you have an aging parent that might be 70 or 80 years old. They live in a small town and their kids and their grandkids live, 6 hours away on a plane. And so the technology turns out to be like a family unification experience for people. And if you can have that as a dialogue for people and say, if they're saying, well, why would I want technology? You could say, well, how much communication do you have with family members or friends that don't live in the town? How do you communicate with folks? My stepmom lives out in Ohio, and I'm constantly having to coach her on how to use her smartphone so that we can do video calls and things like that. But she didn't even realize how easy it was. But once she got up with the calling, we talk a lot more because it's more fun, it's more easy, and I can share a photograph with her and things like that. So building a little bit of capacity on the communication side can really help bring that family together and keep you more connected. And that's a really critical talking point. The other area that a lot of people don't appreciate is how you save money with technology. Once you're online and you've got, you've got a stable internet connection, you can comparison shop. Because there are certainly many things that people purchase where you might not have it in your own home community at a certain price, but if you can order it to be shipped to you, it's often more affordable, or you can research things and get a better product or service. Secondly, there are benefits that people are eligible for from the government that people don't take advantage of. I just got back from a session in Denver this week where we were talking about how many people don't take advantage of SNAP benefits. There's millions of people who have been paying taxes their whole lives and who are now lower income, and they're eligible for that food support, and they're not drawing down those resources that they're eligible for. So if you get online and you can learn about that stuff, you can sign up for some of those things. You can also just connect to, people are now watching shows on YouTube and Netflix and things, so you may save money for having to pay for as much cable. Some people have they call it, going over the top, and they're canceling that cable bill and using the internet as a more of an entertainment experience. So there's a lot of things that rural people benefit from specifically that can sort of get them engaged. Frankly, just asking what's important to them in their lives right now, you can usually find an angle to think about a technology solution.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with Tom. So connection is a very huge piece for older adults, and I think that's one thing I really advise here. And what we usually do is sometimes you can just host social hours, connect to service coordinators from affordable housing, try to host social hours, not just teaching them the technology or like telling them how to use it, but like just getting to know them, telling them like what's in, like there is technology. Do you know how to use it? We can provide it free. So getting to know older adults is one thing I would really advise anyone to do. So once you get to know them, you can divert the attention to the things that you can provide. So definitely social hours really, really helped us, and just connecting with service coordinators, going in affordable housing to chat with them, get to know them, talk to them, and then dive into the technology part of, hey, do you know that we offer these programs? Do you know we can provide you with free laptops and hotspot to support you? So I think that's how we've been able to do that.
Thank you, Chisom and Tom. No, those are very helpful resources, and just getting back to basics of engaging your community and bringing folks in easily and not all at once can be very helpful. Tim, anything from you from AARP side? Otherwise, I do have a question for you.
Since you offered, Ellen, no, Tom did a great job further laying out the benefits that high-speed internet can, and access and the skills to really use high-speed internet can afford older adults. But yeah, the list goes on and on. I mean, healthcare access, as we mentioned, social connectivity, public services. So accessing public services like the SNAP benefits and others, that's all going to be moving online more and more. The people who can easily navigate the system to be able to get connected are literally going to be connected with the services and supports they need faster. I was looking back and I read a statement that seemed like a no-brainer, but the FCC chairman had a statement just I won't tell you when it came out, but it basically said, if you want to be able to get a job in today's day and age, you need to have digital skills to be able to navigate online job postings and such. And then I scrolled up to look, and I said, oh, this is helpful. You know, there was even a statistic, something like 80% of the jobs were being posted. And then I took a look at the date, and it said 2015. This was the Federal Communications Commission chairman talking about how important it is for people to be connected. And that was a statistic that was valid for 2015. Imagine what it is for today. And so I just wanted to re-emphasize that there are so many facets here. There's so many benefits to helping people not only get connected, but actually have the skills and tools to be able to use high-speed internet. It just goes on and on. Thanks, Ellen.
No, thank you for that, Tim. And maybe we can dig into that just a little bit and then get back to our questions in the chat. Is thinking about the future of the digital divide. You mentioned having the skills to get re-into the workforce or to stay in the workforce, thinking about emergency preparedness. Just wondering if our panel can touch on that, thinking about the future of the digital divide and what comes before us.
I'm happy to take that first and pass it around, but you mentioned emergency preparedness and response. Frankly, we're seeing, obviously the devastating storms that have come through the Southeast, and just the upheaval, the human upheaval, and then the actual the damage, the recovery. It's mind-boggling to think about. But let me tell you this, if the infrastructure is there, if the digital infrastructure is there on the front end to help push out information to make sure that people know what they should do, where they can go, this is super important. It's gonna help people. Some of us can remember back in the day when having a weather radio or an AM radio is something that they could count on in times like this. We're going to have people who are connected, and if we have resilient infrastructure to support this, we're going to be able to really push out information to help people take care of themselves in these extraordinary circumstances. But really looking to the future, I think, the next 10 years, I don't want to overstate it, but AI is going to really revolutionize a lot of how we live. And if people have access and some familiarity and some skills to be able to tap into that, they're going to be a step or two or three ahead. I think that's really the frontier. I know that we mentioned that there's probably some hesitations. We've talked about barriers and why some older adults haven't adopted technology if they do have access or if they do have skills. And so we need to overcome concerns about cyber, security. And I think many of us certainly within our friends and family and our greater networks, know someone that had their identity stolen or had real issues. And so there's an opportunity there to help train and educate and get people more comfortable and really be able to navigate more confidently online. So I'm super excited about what that is going to lead to, because I think that for some that's continues to be a real barrier. But I'll stop there and pass it along.
Two quick points. One is the on the workforce side, more increasing numbers of people over the age of 65 are continuing to work. And over the last 30 years, the labor force participation rates have been rising pretty steadily for older adults. And so this challenge of using technology to find a job or to keep a job or to get a maximum salary in a job is really kind of front and center. I just was looking at a chart today. It says that 11.2 million Americans over 65 either were working or were actively seeking work in 2023. So that's about 20%. That's a very high number. And on the one hand, getting just the simple mechanics of applying. We actually have a program at OATS where we've been teaching for years. Searching for a job in the digital age, because you need to be able to get things put into a PDF. A lot of people don't know what a PDF is. I mean, it's a format for sending your resume, but if you've never heard of it, it's immediately a barrier, right? And then there's just all of the issues with how do you present yourself when you're applying and you're 65 or 70 years old and you want to come across as having fresh skills, and you want to deal with the fact that a lot of hiring managers may have anti-aging biases that you need to just be aware of and sell yourself with your best foot forward. And so helping people be empowered to do those applications. I remember AARP did a survey a bunch of years ago that found that a lot of employers are concerned about hiring older people because they don't know if they want to learn anything anymore, which is so contrary to common sense, but it's a bias and we need to overcome that. And so we've got to address showing that people are staying active, they're learning. Somebody mentioned in the chat, keeping our minds sharper and just having that attitude about being constantly developmental. So I think that's really important there. On something else that Tim said, and then I'll stop here, but with the Florida hurricane that just happened, I was really struck by how critical technology is to be able to act in a very dynamic world. There's so many things that happen today that require up to the minute information to be able to decide what you're going to do. Whether, do you need to evacuate your house? It's a pretty good example there with all the natural disasters. There was a terrible fire in Hawaii where people just had minutes to leave their homes and people were perished. It was a terrible tragedy. And having access to best quality technology is critical. So you may get what you see on the news, but I have a phone and I used to be I still do quite a lot of sailing. So I have all these websites that give me the buoy information from the actual up-to-date weather information right off the buoy that's parked outside the harbor in Sarasota. And so I had a friend that was trying to figure out what was going on with his house. I went to the buoy information on the internet and I texted him. I was in Denver, he was in California, but his house is in Sarasota. And I said, you're going to get 3 feet of storm surge. And I could tell that from looking at the buoy information as it was happening right when the hurricane was approaching. And that technology knowledge gives us the chance to act in real time. And I think that we're all being asked to have that kind of information going forward, to be able to access up-to-date information. Some of these things really are very timely and you need to know now, not 3 weeks from now when somebody else has digested it. So that empowering factor, I think, really is one of the backdrops to digital inclusion.
Absolutely. And Chisom, anything you'd like to close out with on that question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really agree with Tom and Tim. Technology has come to stay and we just have to cope with technology. Just getting used to the trainings, getting acquainted to what we have and what is here to stay. So definitely, I really agree with Tim. Just technology is here and we have to understand that AI is also here. So getting training and making sure that we know how to use it or what to do is very, very important. So definitely.
Thank you so much, Chisom. All right, so we are coming up to the end of our call, but I do want to get to one more question, and it was from Cheryl Perchio. Tim, this is for you. How can because we've got Senior Planet participants and organizations that are serving older adults on this call, we've got a question come through. Where can we apply for funding for this work? So how can the Digital Equity Act support on the ground organizations?
So, I'm glad that was brought up. So as I mentioned, states have developed plans, the digital equity plans. They're standing up, most of them are standing up grant programs to push the funds that are coming from the federal government to worthy programs across the country to start providing or continue providing digital skills and device ownership and other digital equity activities. So the floodgate, I'll just use that metaphor, is about to open in digital equity and having the resources coming from this Digital Equity Act. It's truly amazing. I do think that you will see an uptick in opportunities, especially going into 2025. I'm hoping that across the country, no matter where you are, there's going to be new organizations offering great programming. I think there's going to be traditional organizations that have already offered great programming like OATS for quite a while that are going to be able to expand and do even more. So I'm hoping, of course, libraries and other institutions that have traditionally provided access, I hope will have the intention here is to make sure that they have expanded resources and reach into the community to provide the place to go, whether people have a device or not. So I think we're about to burst out of the starting gate here because the money is about to flow. And I've looked at all of the state digital equity plans. They're robust. They're reaching all of the populations that have been left behind. And so things should look really differently. Maybe we'll do a call like this a year from now and we'll be able to reflect back. But I'm really optimistic on what's about to happen.
Thank you very much for that, Tim. And unfortunately, we are at the end of our call. But before we go, I want to give just 20 seconds to you each for some closing thoughts. I know, Tom, it's on the tip of your tongue right now. So I'll start with you, Tom, and just 20 seconds.
I'm just thrilled to have such a great group here talking and being able to share this with Chisom and Tim. I think what we found is that we're looking at a short-term renaissance in digital equity right now. You know, these funding patterns are not going to be forever. They're 4-year funding commitments from the government. So we have a short window of opportunity to make a lot out of this. We know it makes a difference, and we know that older adults really particularly benefit from these programs. So OATS is going to be working in a lot of the states on these projects. We know others who are in some of the states that we're not connected. AARP offices are up to speed on all of this at each of the state offices, so they're great resources. So the time is, there's no time like the present to get involved in this stuff.
Thank you, Tom. And Chisom.
Yeah, sure. So many great resources from Senior Planet and also from LBFE, just looking to expand, looking to get across so many older adults as we can, and just also partnering with Senior Planet with the amazing course books and just so many amazing things that they have in stock. So feel free to chat, feel free to email me, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Chisom and Tim.
Thanks, Ellen. Big thanks to OATS for hosting this call today. This has been a fantastic discussion. I'd like to leave the call participants with one thing. Your activity, your participation, you're part of a movement. This really is, this digital equity movement started decades ago. But right now we've got this tremendous opportunity before us. Let's make sure we make the most of it. Engage your state broadband office, engage AARP, and let's make sure that we get everything we can out of this.
Fantastic. All right. I want to thank so much to our audience and to our panelists, Tom, Tim, Chisom, and also to our virtual team, Deirdre and Wanda. Apologies if we couldn't answer your question today. Thank you for your comments. If you do have questions about Senior Planet, reach out to info@seniorplanet.org and we will reach back out to you. Thank you so much for joining the call and happy Digital Inclusion Week.
Thank you.
Thank you.